November 15th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. It was only economic data that came out around 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, which is right about here. It was the core producer price index as well as the core retail sales. And I don't know, it didn't really create such a shock like it did yesterday, the consumer price index, the inflation number. So it only really dropped it from 45.41 to, I would argue, maybe, let's be generous and say about 45.21. So maybe a good 20 points as opposed to yesterday's crazy move yesterday here. So this is how I saw the charts today. There weren't very many setups, but there were probably a good 2 to 3 good setups. But overall, there weren't very many setups that I could find. This is what the chart looked like today. It was kind of in a big, ugly range because, where you put the top of the range is, you can argue for either or. So I actually had the range here that I was playing, this blue one, but then I had sub ranges, the sub blue one, and another small one, and this is the pre-market lows and pre-market high. And at one time, I was debating whether the top of my range here was actually maybe higher here. With all these big swings that you see, there weren't actually very many setups, and it was hard to trust any of the ranges that I had because price action never really fully respected the tops and the bottoms too many times, because it looks like it touched twice here, but it never comes back to this level. And the same thing here, touched twice here, and then it kind of breaks through, touches. Maybe you can make an argument that this is a clean, I don't think it's a clean top of the range. And the bottom of the range, the most touches came right around here, but then also at the pre-market. And there was just a lot of inconsistencies that made trading, well, kind of dry and a little, I wouldn't say difficult, but tricky, because it was a range day with some trends and some channels, but it was hard to find good setups. I'm going to go through the trades today. I only took one trade today, and it was green, and I was okay with that, but because just the rest of the day didn't really yield too many setups that I could find. So hopefully I can get through this rather quickly. This is the pre-market lows and the pre-market highs. I marked it here. It's this gray range here. I don't trade the pre-market, so this is an AM, but I do just draw it out just to look at it to see if this was irregular trading hours, what I would have done. On the open, I just initially think we're going to be in a trading range all day. So I thought it was just going to be where this blue, top of this blue and top of this blue here was going to be. And I just counted this as an overshoot and a fail breakout. Price is open, and they're just kind of moving in a very, very tight sideways upward move. Then it breaks out here, comes up, makes a new high and comes back down. Then it kind of just marches along. Now, as with a lot of these that I've noticed, there's second entries all over the place, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're high probability. So I'm only looking for very specific, clean second entries, or at least I try to, because I know I do slip in my trading and get sloppy. But that's a goal nevertheless. And so the first setup I actually see is, okay, so we're working down on this, and I try to fit a trend line here, and I try to fit a trend line here. And so this yellow channel wasn't fully developed. So I didn't really have, I had this, but I didn't really trust it or take trades off of. But I did see this potentially as a new high here. It's a first entry long, pull back, second entry long. Second entry long, this is a bad signal bar, but there were two measured legs down, one leg down, consolidation, and the second leg down. And it almost made the complete measured move. But the thing that was preventing me from taking this trade is, as you see this in real time, this is a terrible looking signal bar. And I don't know that this yellow trend channel is actually valid yet. Because you can make an argument that kind of fits here, kind of fits here, kind of fits here, but that's a little sketchy. And it turns out to be a failed breakout after you get this candle confirming. But after this candle forms, I felt the trade was already made. I just needed this candle to be a little bit more bullish and close higher up than I think I might have considered taking a trade. Drops around, it kind of moves, and it kind of goes upward on this green channel. And this green channel was actually a little tighter initially because I thought it was perhaps something like this because it touched a little bit better. And it breaks through. Now, when it breaks through, I'm thinking prices should come back down and test the other side, but it continues to dwell outside. So at that point, I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to drag this out a little bit more, maybe treat this as an overshoot. Comes back and makes a symmetric overshoot. It's coming back in now, and I'm thinking, okay, this green channel could be valid. And I do see this new low They say first entry short, pull back, second entry short. Now I'm thinking maybe there's going to be a second entry short failure because I do draw this orange channel. It started off as a trend line support. It fits pretty well as 1, 2, 3 touches, and potentially the top here could be the top of the channel. And so here, technically you don't have a failed second entry short yet because the second entry short hasn't failed yet because this next candle, if it breaks lower, then you don't have a failure, you just have a continuation of the second entry short. But I saw this and I thought this is a pretty strong green candle, but I don't like it because it's running into what I believe could be the top of this range. Now, granted, the range could be actually higher up right here, or you could even argue that's the very top of this pre-market high. But I was playing it off of this blue channel, so I just didn't feel comfortable because technically it hasn't failed yet, and it looks like there was a little bit of resistance here with this micro double top. Breaks through. When this forms, then I felt the trade was too late. And then this candle doesn't give me much confidence to continue taking along because definitely you might have a resistance here. Prices continue moving up, forms this new high, creates a first entry long, pulls back, breaks down, and this is actually where I take my first trade. There's 2 legs down, 1 leg down, pull back, second leg down. It's a break of this orange channel. And technically the green channel is already broken out. It went and tested the highs, but since it broke out of this orange channel, I'm thinking this is the first break. It might want to come back up and test the highs. And it's kind of technically outside of this trading range. Now, again, you could argue this isn't a valid top of the range. You could have had it actually higher up. But where I had it and the way I was trading it, I felt it was already outside. It didn't have a strong, decisive push down through and back into this range. And this is an inside candle. So I waited and I waited for this to open. It chopped around. I liked what I was seeing. It actually went up pretty high to, I think, near the high, came back. I entered at the high of this signal bar and I wrote it up for one quick point because I didn't want to risk my luck and try to push it past this potential top. And it looked like that was the right decision because I have no doubt if I try to go for more points, I probably would have gotten stopped out. Then prices continue chopping down. It falls into this yellow channel. It originally started out as a range again, and I actually had the bottom of this maybe right here, but then since it overshot, I dragged it back right here. And I saw this as a new low. So first entry short, pull back, second entry short. The problem with the second entry short is the signal bar is this doji, and the following trigger bar is also pretty neutral doji-ish, even though it closed red. The problem is it didn't break below the EMA. Had this actually just been more bearish and just ticked right at the EMA or broke below, I would have probably had an order ready to take it because it is being rejected off the bottom, or actually off this resistance line. So this is like an almost setup. But then you have a higher low confirmation. I think this is a possible trade. This is probably a little bit safer because you have a confirmed rejection and it looks like it's moving back down. EMA is holding prices down. So this is a potential trade higher low, especially when you see this candle form. Had I wanted to take this trade, I think I would have either put it one tick below this guy or right at the lows of this guy. And it looks like one, if I put it right at the lows, it's debatable whether I would have gotten filled. If I put it one tick below, I know for sure I would have gotten it filled. And it looks like it would have worked. Prices then break through this yellow channel, the opening, excuse me, overshoot. Then it starts consolidating. And it kind of just keeps moving and marching along what I think is a trading range. And it's kind of hugging the bottom of this lower range that I see. But I'm not really sure yet if this is valid or if prices are going to come back down and test the pre-market lows. So then it breaks out. It looks like it's a fail breakout here. It's just very congested here. These candles are side by side, almost the same size. Just doesn't look like anything safe at this moment, at least for me. There's this push up. It breaks out of this yellow channel, but this yellow channel is already kind of becoming very weak because you had an overshoot here, you have an overshoot here. There's a sideways consolidation. So I have high doubts that this yellow channel could even be in play now. Drops around and it kind of breaks out of this green channel, and then you have first attempt up, and then here I saw a new high. I saw first entry long, pull back. It's about to create a second entry long. Here creates a second entry long. So I saw 4 key entry points. I saw a new high, I saw first entry long, pull back, second entry long, failure. I also saw this as a new low, saw this first entry short, pull back, second entry short, and you have a triple test. For whatever reason, prices could not break through this line here. Technically, my top of my range is here, but for whatever reason, there's one touch, two touch, three touch that prices had trouble getting through. And I drew this as a trend line first before I turned it into a channel. It looked like there was some kind of respect being given, and it was below the EMA. Even though the EMA is flattening out, it's not really in play, but it's just another little thing to help motivate a trade to take it short. Unfortunately, I did not take this trade though. If I did, I think I would have placed it one tick below this doji candle because I'd be trying to push it probably to the lows here. So it's like 45, 20, 50, and then 45, 20, 175. So actually, I might have tried to scoot it back a little bit, maybe right here. Looks like if I did that, I would not have gotten filled, and this price would have just went down without me. Prices then continue. It looks like it's following. I end up drawing the orange trend line down. It was originally a channel here. Then I said, okay, there's probably a breakout here, but it didn't really have a clean other side. So then I actually dragged it right here. Nevertheless, it looks like it's obeying it pretty well. Then it breaks out. I do see a failed second entry short here. So I see a new low. It's a first entry short, second entry short. The problem that I had with this particular setup is, yes, it is a failed second entry short. It kind of formed below and then completed above. If this all started above, like if the EMA was actually scooping below here, actually below here, and a second entry short failure, I would have felt pretty confident taking this trade. The thing I didn't really like is overall bias has been kind of bearish. I wasn't convinced yet this is going to be a failed breakout. So I was just waiting for more price action to unfold. On top of that, this movement here, even though it's first entry short, second entry short, could be seen as one big leg. So even though it's one big leg, you have a second entry short to go long. You don't really know that's really going to do that because here, yes, you could make an argument like this is a very bullish bar. It didn't break above this one though. Like had this bar broken above, then I might have considered taking that trade, negating the fact that this is kind of a bearish downtrend, but it just was very congested and only broke by one tick. So I kind of decided I should wait, look for a higher low, which never really shows up until about right here. But it already broke out of here, and this higher low is a little far from the EMA for my liking. So I kind of decided just to let this skip this and let it go. And then prices continue moving up. It falls into what I think is a spike in a channel. Didn't mean to do that. The spike, and then it goes into this yellow channel. I saw one leg, and I saw potentially a second leg. It almost reached it, but it didn't. It comes pushing back down, comes back up in the second attempt, breaks through, it consolidates, and then kind of comes back down. So you could argue there's a smaller range here, but it's not very clean. And I'm just kind of watching now, and just had first entry long. You technically have a second entry long here, so a new high. So first entry long, second entry long. This is a bad signal bar. It just consolidates, and I do see a second entry long here, a clean one. So it's actually from here, first entry long, pullback, second entry long, count resets. This could be considered a new high localized. First entry long, pullback, second entry long. Now this is a decent signal bar because it's closing very, very bullish, but I wasn't sure because I wasn't sure if this is actually a range because I was thinking there might be some kind of consolidation. It looks a little bit iffy. I'm not 100% sure what I'm looking at. EMA is kind of flattening. And granted, if you're more aggressive, you could probably take this trade and argue there's enough room to before it hits the localized high. But I just decided to sit on my hands. And it looked like if you just went for about one tick, you would have gotten it. And prices kind of fall into this trading range, drops around, and it's kind of getting late in the day now. And it just kind of moves into the close. So there weren't too many setups that I could find today, even though with all this whippy big swings. I think there was a potential trade here, as I mentioned, but if I was too conservative, I wouldn't have gotten it filled. And I think this higher low here was a potential trade. So it's kind of how I saw the charts today. It was a little, the volume was a little lower, but there was these big moves, and unfortunately, there was no clear way to get into them. So hopefully that was helpful.